Do you like restanding Vanguards outside of Dragon Empire? Do you also like 4 drive checks in a single turn? Do you like nostalgia from DBT08 Minerva Rising? Or even going further beyond Brilliant Strike BT14? Dang, it's been that long. Then Minerva with the new support coming in set 9 is the deck for you. With the return of the new Grade 4 Minerva into D series, it almost performs like a pseudo stride, just very similarly like Favas and Lambros in V series, giving us essentially access to triple drive, still keeping the restanding aspect of it too, while also getting the Grade 2 support specific to extend more attacks, or even set up for that superior ride essentially from Soul. We also have some generic Keter support that we can utilize in this deck as well. You're going to want to stay to the very end because I'm also going over card choices, but also ride progression and how that looks like managing your soul and also just applying that pressure. Let's get right into it. So the ride line is what you expect. We have the Minerva line here. The things to keep in mind is when the grade 1 and the grade 2 is written over by the next grade, you're able to check the top 5 and select 2 cards and put them into soul for your choice. What's also really nice is it's setting up for your soul for Genesis related soul blast type of skills anyway, but you can selectively soul charge what you really want in the soul. Cards that you want to put into the soul are like the grade 4 Minerva, the Fire Regalia's card that we use as well, and some other options. That way you're deck thinning and keeping your triggers also in your decks though. Minerva doesn't shine as much with the grade 3 version, but before superior riding with the grade 4 Minerva, you can still use her skill to soul blast and check the top card. You can keep it on top or you can soul charge. This can be very helpful on stacking triggers right before you go into your battle phase. Or it could also be the method that you need the grade 4 Minerva still in soul. Now for the main deck, we are playing 4 copies of the grade 4 Minerva. So the reason that you want to max out is because you want to see it as soon as possible. I feel like the games that you don't have it in your soul to be able to superior ride, you struggle the most to actually win. It's also worth noting that it cannot be ridden by normal riding, essentially, so it has to be from its own skill. What's super nice about this is that we don't necessarily have to worry about Persona Ride because it has its own continuous skill that gives the front row continuous plus 10k. And if you didn't ride this turn, for example, like your turn 4 and moving forward, you get the additional 5k from its other skill as well. Assuming that you put a Genesis card as well, from your hand to soul. This also can put copies of itself from the hand to soul so you're not bricking. So it can set up for your following turn because at the end of your turn, this will retire itself from Vanguard Circle and then rewrite essentially the grade 3 Minerva that you had. And of course, on attack, counter blast 1, soul blast 3. At the end of the battle, you're able to restand and it gets -2 checks. So you go from 3 drives to 1 drive. Total of 4 drive checks that way. We are also playing 3 Angelica. She's really for the counter charge aspect. She can still trigger Chamomile technically too, but as you realize that there's only 1 in the right deck, there's not going to be any more in the main deck, spoilers, but it's still counter charging before you enter your battle phase, which can come up with the Minerva skill and also the grade 2 that restands. They use a counter blast. Same thing with Chamomile too. So if you really think about it, as soon as Minerva attacks, you're going to need 2 to 3 CB in that moment. This also can beef up your Vanguard too with 5k, so that's actually pretty appreciative. With the grade 4 Minerva, by default, it's swinging 23, but with the additional 5k, it makes it 28, so it makes it a little more threatening too. You could also play the 4th Angelica if you really want to, but something that I've been trying out and I want to share with you is actually 1 copy of Regalia. You get into games where it can be very grindy and you are close to deck out as well. By this time, you've already filtered your deck, so you've seen your triggers and especially your critical triggers. So Regalia, you can ride it as a finishing turn, returning all your crits back to deck, and then also thanks to the divine skill, you can also survive worst case scenario on the following turn. Do keep in mind this will extend more attacks as well and also have the 3rd drive check by its skill too. If you don't like this card, you can just go back to 4 Angelica or fit some other Genesis support. I got this inspiration from Revengers in Premium, for example, with Raging Form. So one of the orders that we are playing now is the Fire Regalias. We used to play the Cup, the Gratias Gratile, but the thing is we don't Persona Ride anymore. And again, you only saw 1 copy of Minerva and that's in the right line for the grade 3 version. If you don't have this order, you can also use different orders if you really want to, like Caliburn to draw and counter charge potentially. If you want to protect your rearguards more and have soul, Bracing Angel Ladder is another choice if you really want to, or you can fall back to a different card and go from there. I know in the time of recording, this is like a 35 USD plus type of card too. But the reason that we play this card is because it activates in the drop zone. So this is a card you could soul charge, soul blast it out, or you could discard it with the right line and essentially be able to either call something, or if you didn't reveal, you can shuffle your deck and draw a card. So it has that +1 aspect to it, which this deck appreciates. You'll also notice the other cards that are more rigor based are also on place, with the exception of Vivini that needs to be placed from hand. But other than that, all the other cards work on place in generic ways. And then of course, some of them have act skills or skills that activate during the battle phase anyway. So this is something that you appreciate just to having ore building, advantage, etc. Onto the grade 2s, we're playing 4 copies of the new grade 2 Vivini. So what's really nice about this card, it uses your energy or your counterblast cost for the first skill to be able to draw a card, but also set up a card from the drop into the soul, which can actually set up for grade 4 Minerva, essentially. This is if you discard it because of the right line, or just reuse the same grade 4 Minerva that you used prior. Especially if you're going second, you realize that by the time you get to turn 3, because you need a grade 3 Minerva Vanguard, essentially, this doesn't proc to turn 3. So you'll have 9 energy to use, and you can use the other energy for other stuff too. But if you are strapped for energy, you could always use the counterblast if needed. However, we do want to use the counterblast for the next skill, which is basically when your Minerva Vanguard attack, and it has not stood by an ability just yet this turn, you can CB1 to stand this unit and give it plus 5k. So this will give you more attacks, but also become a little bit beefier. With the 8k boosters, this makes 23, and then with the 10k from the grade 4 Minerva skill, this makes 33 as well. Now, into some of the interesting points of the grade 2 lineup. So I'm playing 4 copies of Biscotti for draw power, also just being able to guard, again, energy 3, draw a card type of deal. Do keep in mind the Persona Right skill is irrelevant for this build. However, in the future, if we do get it soon enough, there's no confirmed date yet. There is another grade 2 order, such as the Nebula Knight, half from the Starry Knight, is a really good order. So that is very similar to Fire Regalias. It activates in the drop zone. This helps +1 board build essentially. So that card would be preferred. And so if that were to come out, I would take out 2 Biscotti and put 2 of those in at the very minimum at that point, with still having Fire Regalias in the lineup. There are other options too if you're on a budget and still don't have Biscottis. I know it got reprinted. You could do Cutie Angel if you really want to, but that only works during the right line phases. And then again, we don't Persona Right, so you miss out on that Persona Right skill too. You could also think of other cards such as like Azure Sky too, if you want to have an early game. I've seen other players do that too. Or even some of the old Genesis grade 2, such as like Thassus and also Pros that came out a while ago too. So you have some wiggle room depending on what you value, your budget, and your options really. We are also playing the Ace unit. Again, it's very similar to just being able to superior call. This checks the top 7. You'll call something anything that's like grade 4 or less because you'll be in the grade 4 Minerva. And then it has the inherit skill that it gives of basically resist. So it can stay on the board if you want to keep it for next turn as well. 4 copies of Regalia. Great cards though. The main usage for this card is essentially being able to shove itself and the card that it boosted into soul for soul count, soul fodder, and also getting back key pieces back into soul, such as like Chamomile, Melissa as well. You could use the axe skill if you need to, especially if you're falling behind and you have the extra CB to use to be able to draw a card and fight back by calling something else too. But you also recover a card from the drop when you shove itself and another card into soul. So you can get your Genesis cards, specifically like the grade 4 Minerva, Angelica, and any other Genesis cards that you play. And yes, 4 copies of Coco. So at first I saw this card, read this card, and I felt like, oh, it seems like a nice effect. And then I'm like, it makes sense. You can shove things from hand into soul. And then I read Grade 4 Minerva, and I was like, this is actually really good. Because as you play Genesis, you'll realize that you just appreciate being able to soul charge combo pieces in any form, essentially. And so being able to soul charge selectively from hand is very good. The cost is really shoving a card from hand into soul, being able to check the top 2 cards, add 1 to hand, and then the second one you can either soul charge it or leave it on top of your deck. A lot of good flexibility because you can soul charge 2 cards total technically that way, but also you can stack triggers while you're doing that, making your Minerva turns very scary and also predictable too, especially if you know if a front's coming or a critical trigger is coming. And if you do shove a card from the deck into soul, you get an additional 5k for the rest of the turn. So this is a good booster or attacker if need to be. The second skill is also really nice. So this is a 15k shield, but also an 18k booster without the other skill. The other skill will make it 23 on its own, which is pretty bonkers if you think about it. So this card is actually really good for this deck specifically. I highly recommend getting a full playset if you can too. You could try to get away without it, but you'll have dead copies of the grade 4 Minerva in some games. And it's challenging sometimes if you don't have a Minerva already in the soul to start that cycle of being able to superior right from soul. We're playing 4 copies of Dissection Angel. This card is phenomenal. That when it boosts at the end of the battle, you can Soul Blast, retire it, and draw a card, but also has 2 more skills. Like it's continuous, it gets plus 2k if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, so it's a 10k booster or 10k attacker if need to be. But the third skill is really phenomenal, especially for this deck too, is that whenever your Vanguard does drive check a trigger, you're able to Soul Blast 2 and counter charge 1. This is a once per turn per copy, but if you have 2, you can do this twice. Of course, you'll be Soul Blasting 4 to be able to counter charge 2, but but you realize that it sets you up for the following turn. Again, Minerva and the Re-Standards use the CB, so if you think about it, you're using 2 to 3 CB each turn, and so you just appreciate cards to countercharge. You could say relatively in the middle range of damage and not be so close to 5 damage. Plus, if you're going forward drive checks, you might be able to heal back a damage, and that's kind of countercharging in a way. Of course, you'd just be able to take an extra damage next turn kind of deal. So overall, this card is really good. The also key difference between this and Angelica is that this will basically activate when you're drive checking already. So that means Minerva and the other riggers that depend to see Minerva swing have already passed that timing. So Angelica is still important to be able to countercharge before that. And really, this is after the fact that like, hey, for next turn, you can get some more counterblast for next turn, essentially. And for the PGs, it's really 3 PGs of your choosing, and then I also play the Sanctitude. What's also neat about this deck is that because the grade 4 Minerva retires itself, you're back to a grade 3 Minerva as well. It's kind of like that pseudo stride ideology, essentially. So you're technically a grade 3 when you have to use Sanctitude. So you can use this one. This is also good if other decks are triple drive inherently, such as like the Mirror Match too, or even the Stride deck sets, for example. And for the triggers, we're playing the 4 effect crits. Sometimes this comes up, so these are good into soul crits, and so this happens before you swing with your Vanguard. So the timing's great. And of course, it gives plus 2k, so if you put this on an Angelica and then have an AK booster, that actually makes a number. And then in addition, we are playing 4 more crits for a crit total pressure. And for the pseudo 9th crit is the blue OT. I just wanted to have more pressure in that sense too, to finish games, and just having a restanding Vanguard with crit, and if you do give the 100 million to it, it's very hard to stop if they don't have PGs, essentially. This forces your opponent to have 2 PGs every single turn to stop Minerva swing if they're so fearful of like triggers like crits, right? Plus, you get a card back from your drop, which you do have resources to use. This lets you grab anything too, so if you have other resources that are not Genesis cards that you want to use, like Piscati, Dissection Angel, etc. You could also use different OTs. I've seen people use the purple OT to heal back a damage and potentially call something from your hand, but I feel like the timing is bad. So I think people play that for more of the healing factor. I know I do that with Shiranui, for example, too. 3 front triggers that have the shield value effect, so you appreciate shield value. I used to play draw triggers too as well, just to get combo pieces, but as you realize, you are drawing cards while you're filtering, and it really helps promote your pressure when you do see a front. The timing's really good too, and the fact that you can stack it, it feels really good just be able to be on the offensive while still having the 20k shield benefit at that point too. Also, you can play the soul front, so that way if you want to be extra greedy with like Dissection Angels, for example, too, if you're concerned about that too. So that's one way that you can change it up too. And then for the heals, it's really up to you. The ratios, I'm playing 3 normal and 1 effect trigger. I'm trying the crit one, but I might change it. I'm just playing around really. Again, I only have 1 copy in it, so it only comes up every so often, right? Depending on your local metagame, whether you're playing at locals or your regional, your expected metagame, make that choice that makes sense most to you. Some cards that I want to return are Regalia and a trigger. I want to keep Minerva, so you can easily discard it and use cards like Vivini to be able to put it from drop into your soul, and then you can keep Coco early game pressure as well. Or if you drew into another copy of the Grade 4 Minerva, you could shove it into soul as well. So return these, draw into these. Actually, not bad. So in this case, I'm going to assume I'm going second. Besides Minerva, both the Grade 3 and the 4 are locked behind your opponent being Grade 3 or greater anyway. So we draw for turn, and just like I mentioned, we can discard the Grade 4 Minerva to write into this. We'll be able to draw from the starter, and we'll also get 3 energy. So we got another copy of Coco. You could also have the argument that you can keep the Grade 4 Minerva and discard something else, so you can shove it immediately with Coco. So in this case, let's just call Coco, shove this one into here, and check the top 2. We got Dissection Angel. So we can leave the PG here just to be able to have another perfect card into hand. Otherwise, you can soul charge it. In this case, I feel like we don't want to soul charge it, so let's do that and keep this into hand. And since we know it's a PG, we can call behind the Vanguard. And as an attack, you could attack with the Vanguard first, and then you can boost this for 16. A drive check, no surprise, right? And then skill to be able to Soul Blast, do a Genesis card if you want to, retire it, and draw a card. In this case, we drew a heal. Not the greatest. So a couple of things. Let's say they could have called more Regards to attack your Regard, and what I typically like to do is, if possible, I like to stay at low damage. In this case, we have Perfect Guards, and then the 10k shield, which is not necessarily always live immediately. So if I had a 15k, I would have guarded. Basically no T to pass usually. But let's say we just take 1 damage. Then go back to our turn, draw a card, and we go to 6 energy. We drew another crit. Let's see. Let's say in this, I don't need the heal. Go to the Grade 2 ride. Melissa triggers. check top 5. So it's not the best. So you'll get top 5s like this. This is not necessarily the best. Ideally, you want to see a grade 4 Minerva. So the next question is like, what do I still want in deck? Well, I still want a heal and a front trigger left in deck. So let's say we roll those out. And at this point, I feel like I'm going to take some damage. So I feel like this might be live if I get another copy. And this is also live because I have the extra energy as well. So you can soul charge one of Biscotti. Because our hand has at least one of these, let's just soul charge the ace unit. So we keep this one in the deck. And shuffle, of course. Tough decisions, man. In this case, you can attack the Vanguard or the Rear, depending on what they got. Drive check. Oh, just look at that. We actually drew it. 2 Vivinis for next turn. So let's say they attack. We guard with this. We take 2 damage. Ooh, Fire Regalia. We got a crit. And let's say we were able to use Sanctity 2 with 1 drop. Then go to our turn. We draw a card and we go to 9. And so, ooh, look at that. Grade 4 Minerva, finally, right? So a couple of options. Again, if you want to discard it, because we have 2 Vivinis, that's fine too. So we'll discard that to go into Minerva Grade 3. A Chamomile would trigger for a top 5. Finally, we got a Minerva here. And let's say we did this because we still want to countercharge for whenever we draw that later. So Soul. Now this is where the fun begins. And so we have 2 Vivinis. We'll start with 1. Energy Blast 3. To draw a card, Dissection Angel. Of course, we choose a card from our drop and soul charge it. Let's say the Grade 4 Minerva. We discarded earlier. Let's say we do it again. Another Energy Blast 3. Draw a card. We do Biscotti. And we shove another Grade 4 Minerva. So in this scenario, we have 3 Grade 4 Minervas already. So we're set for the next 3 turns, including this one. Not bad. So we can still extend more if we want to. Call Dissection Angel here. Now the tough part is with Coco, because if you want to use its stacking skill to be able to shove something, and then you also need Minerva skill to shove something else too. As you can see, this is why we appreciate cards that Superior call, such as like the Fire Regalia or the Ace unit if we did have it, to start board building. So let's say I rely on Minerva's. Minerva skill will Soul Blast Melissa. So look at the top card. We can Soul Charge her to keep it on top. We'll just Soul Charge it. And then Melissa can trigger. Put in the back row as a booster here. It says you may Soul Charge 1. So we don't know what the next card's going to be, so we just soul charge a non-trigger, and we've been drawing non-triggers as well. So I feel this card more than likely will be a trigger. So now activating Grade 4 Minerva from Soul. In this case, we'll shove Coco into the Soul, buying Minerva. Superior Ride Grade 4 Minerva. You could also soul charge the Biscotti if you want to, but I felt like we'll have enough energy to be able to guard and draw into an extra card, potentially get into something better, because we already have enough Grade 4 Minervas in our Soul to continue on anyway the following turns. And thanks to Minerva's skill, it's plus 10 to the front row. And so your first attack will be one of these. So 10 plus 10, 20. Second attack also as well, 20. And then Minerva attacks, and then we have these trigger. I usually just do the regards first so I don't forget. And then of course Minerva is another CB and Soul Blast 3. So here I'll just Soul Blast stuff that I don't necessarily need in the Soul. I don't want to use Chamomile because I already have Restanders. So remember, triple drive. So the first check is a heal. Wow, would you look at that? We guessed right. Assuming that we're able to heal the Fire Regalia. That's going to be helpful for next turn. So multiple things are happening actually. We healed already. Power here, and then also Dissection Angel triggers. So we can Soul Blast these two, be able to counter charge. So we just healed and also counter charge. So in essence, we kind of counter charge too that way. So the second is a front trigger. So 20 to the front row now. And oh my god, another heal. Let's say we do heal in this case. And then let's just say we distribute the power to the other one. Yep. And so as you can see, we were rewarded finally with our drive checks, with triggers, with all that filtering and stuff. And remember that you get 5k for their skill as well, so plus 15 in total. And Dissection Angel gets 5k from its skill. Their Vanguard is also grade 3, gets an additional 2k. So, and then remember at the end of the battle, your Vanguard will restand. And then your Vanguard can swing with 1 drive check, and this is 33. So you could also put the triggers onto the Vanguard if you want to, besides the front trigger, but just depends how much they want to guard. If you're already swinging for 33, you're already pretty much guaranteeing at least 2 cards in most cases. And so your drive check is a crit. Wow, okay, that's actually really good. So let's say they guarded it. This is technically weaker, but we could put the power here and crits here if you want to, depending on damage, what they have, right? So this will attack next. This is 25, 45 plus 8, 53. Then swing with this, 35 plus 20, 55, then 55 plus 15, 70k with crit. And then end the battle, Dissection Angel will trigger to Soul Blast 1, draw a card. So our hand size right now is 8 cards. At the end of the turn, this will retire and rewrite the Minerva. And that's the deck list. I hope you really enjoyed being able just to have a restanding Vanguard and also just a lot of synergy with combo pieces. It's a sweet spot, really. And also the nostalgia factor, since I played Minerva since BT 14 days, it's actually my first competitive Vanguard deck ever. Let me know down in the comments below other suggestions or maybe like questions if you have. Excited to engage conversations. And if you're interested in watching more Vanguard content, you can check either standard or premium videos over here. Till next time, amigos. Bye.